What is up, everybody? Sorry for the short misstep last week. I had an unusually busy week with just a lot of other engagements and I didn't have time to record a video. Ever since I got back, I haven't really managed to have an opportunity to make a backlog to give me a little bit of buffer time. But, you know, I'm working on that and hopefully we can get back on schedule soon. Anyway, as you can see behind me, this is a close-up of my new hobby setup, and I wanted to take an opportunity to show you guys around the new space. It's pretty sick, and show you how I organize my tools and my workflow. That is, I think, you know, useful. It's my first hobby space, so things definitely could change in how I organize it, but it's been working for me so far. I like to sort my things a little bit by function and also, well, you know, where things fit. But, you know, we have some models in progress over here, as well as my display plate, a green stuff roller. This is how I make all of my tentacles and mechadendrites and stuff like that. I use one of these rollers. And then in the cabinets and compartments here, I have my basing materials. All of these are dedicated to different basing materials. I have some green, is it Green Stuff Games? Gamer Grass, that's the one, Gamer Grass. I got my slate chips. I use these all the time for my AdMech guys. I've got like a giant sack of them and I'm like halfway through it, I think. And then up in the top here we have, these are actually some dried carrot fronds that I haven't used yet, but I think they could make some like cool vegetation, maybe some swampy undergrowth. Paper towel. Always have paper towels directly accessible. Literally, the first time I painted on this new setup, I spilled a bunch of water everywhere. Thank God it was just water and not Null Oil. RIP. You need paper towels. And I just have a whole space dedicated just for that. Alongside that, we have our hobby tools. We got paint brushes, we got files. In the front here, we have some dry brushes. Those are just some cheap makeup brushes. We also have these are just some cheap whatever brushes. I got two clippers. One of them came with something and the other is just my usual pair. I have a cheap clipper that I use for like wires and other non-plastic stuff, and this one I just usually keep to plastic to try and keep that edge as sharp as possible. Pin vise down here, a couple of different tweezers, straight and edged. As we pan up a little bit, we can see these are my nice-ish brushes. They're really not that nice, but they're nicer than the blue ones. These are like the ones above my head right now. Those are like the junky ones that I use for whatever. But they're not my junkiest ones, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. Always have your scalpel and or X-Acto knife, toothbrush for cleaning. A little bit of my secret sauce here, some Sakura Micron pens. Great for doing things like purity sealed text. It's how I get the little like cog pattern on my AdMech guys. I did that with the pen instead of the brush. It made it a whole lot easier. And I also got a Sharpie and a couple pencils because you never know when you need to mark stuff up. Down in the compartments below, we have what are my actual, well, first a spare X-Acto blade, and then these are my cheap brushes. I got like a pack of 50 of these brushes for like $5 or something. It was like really cheap, and these are the ones I use for like, I use it for like Vallejo liquid metal, which is kind of rough. I'll use it for like mixing stuff on my wet palette, and I don't really need to like worry about cleaning it all off. I can get it like right in the fronds and it doesn't really matter that much. These are the brushes that are like pseudo disposable. They're all size 0, some random synthetic brand. And if it gets to a point of unusability, I don't need to feel too bad about tossing it. And then right here we have some wood carving tools. I think they're meant for wood, but they work pretty well on plastic too. And these are really nice if you need to like scoop something out or like get like a specific shape out of material. They got a couple different shapes. There's some straight ones, there's some scoops, there's some points. A good variety of sharp tools for just getting anything out. We got some magnets as well. Magnets are always extremely useful in the hobby space in general. You want some modularity to your figures, you got to magnetize them. And then we got some like nice little metal paint trays. These things are super cheap, super nice, and they're just really great resistant materials to like mixing up like alcohols or other sorts of things that might be corrosive to other materials, things that you don't want to get on your wet palette, for example. Got a razor knife over here, as well as my filing tools. This is kind of what I said about like splitting things by functionality. We have basing tools, and then like this is like my filing stuff. So I got filing sticks, filing blocks, sandpaper, things of that nature. If I need to remove material at a controlled pace, that's the drawer I go to. And then the top drawer here, we have our sculpting tools. We got green stuff, we got milliput, we got plastic putty. We got like a couple of extra blades because that's just like the best spot that they fit in. And then we also have over here some liquid green stuff, which I still haven't used yet because I've heard it's actually pretty bad and I bought it before I knew that. I did recently pick up a paint mixer. This is technically for, I think it's supposed to be for like test tubes and like labs and stuff, but it works well for paints as well. And it was a little bit expensive. It was like 60 bucks. A solid daylight lamp, very important. Gets a wide offset glow, has a couple of different intensities. We got a figurine holder here. I know there's mixed opinions about the Citadel ones, but again, I kind of bought that before I knew what I was doing, and I just needed something to hold my figures. It's worked well enough so far, even if it's not the best one, and it's kind of overpriced. Solid cutting mat that's on, my latest project. We got these converted electro priests that I'm finally painted up. Got my latest project always ready to go. Here's my wet palette, a painter's best friend. Mine's pretty messy at this point because I was using a bunch of different colors, and some of them have separated, some of them have actually, looks like a lot of them have separated here. But this is also like when I spilled on my wet palette, so it's a little bit of chaos, but these things are a savior. They're the best way to paint acrylics. Don't put anything that's not acrylics on them though, because you'll mess them up. Also, I don't paint with metallics on here. It's just for normal colors, basically. Anything that's a different formula, I usually just use a dry palette for. But these things, they keep your paint fresh for days at a time. You don't need to keep refilling and wasting a bunch of unused paint, which is nice. Here's a close-up of my figures here so you can see how they're going. I still need to weather them, but and base them. But otherwise, they're pretty much good to go. Battle ready, as it were. Paintbrush holder, a horizontal paintbrush holder. That's an important bit. And my dry palette over here. I use this dry palette for a lot of things, actually, like metallics. You can see it's still kind of got some shiny parts in it. Fluorescent paints I really don't want to water those down too much because they separate really easily. Other things like enamel washes, weathering effects. Literally anything that's not just a normal acrylic color, it's probably going in the dry palette. And, you know, it ends up with a little bit more wasted paint, but what are you going to do? And then above that, I have the rest of my, like, quote-unquote nicer brushes. They're fine. I just haven't used those ones yet. And then we got this container over here where I keep my cutting blades that are non-X-Acto. These are just, like, box cutters, basically. This one I use exclusively for milliput. The large one is for milliput, the smaller one is for whatever. And some leftover makeup brushes for dry brushing are there. Those are like the bigger ones that I haven't really found a solid use for yet. Right next to them is my Vallejo texture paste, which I use for all of my basing on my AdMac. I'm like kind of almost done with that, I think. And we also have some blue tack, which is great for temporarily holding things together, like for dry fitting, or when you need to prime things and you need to cover up some joints where parts will join together later. It's great for that too. And then this last one here, I have various types of, this is called, it has a name, Armature Wire. This is where my armature wire, it took It took a while to come up with that name, but it was up here. I knew what it was called. I have various different types of armature wire, and those are used for making, you know, just wires. If I want wires dangling off of dudes, those are how I make my flexible tubings, cables, mechadendrites, things of that nature. I use armature wire as the core of those, so they remain flexible even after they've cured. And they're also, as I move into more extensive kit bash projects, they're going to be useful to build out frames of things that I can attach other things onto. Really solid for building a quick silhouette when you don't have maybe everything you need to fill it out. But armature wire, absolutely useful for a modeler. Specifically in my case when I'm making AdMech stuff. Here are all of my acrylic paints and a couple of other ones. These are just all of the standard dropper bottle sizes. I have the flesh tones up here, metallics plus some effects in the row below. And then it just gets into normal colors in the bottom two rows. The bottom row is what I use for most of my army, so I always have that close at hand. The other stuff is a little bit more rarely used. You can see some of the greens have never been touched. But yeah, these colors right here are the ones that I use for my current project, which is my AdMech army. And then over here is the bigger stuff. We have glazes, varnishes, streaking grimes. We have some fluorescent paints, some washes, and Citadel technical paints as well. And then below that, this is where I keep everything that just doesn't really have a home otherwise. Got my glues here, some pigments, because those just wouldn't fit in the painting trays. I got some matte varnish, and these are dental tools, kind of. They're not actually medical grade, but they're basically the same thing, and they're great for sculpting. You might have seen I had some silicone ones as well, so I have a set of silicone sculpting tools and a set of metal ones. They both have their purpose, and I'm learning about how and when to use each as I learn more about green stuff. But this is my new hobby setup, and I'm super pumped to work on it. It's been great so far. It's been honestly really nice and a huge improvement over what I used to have, which was that. And yeah, the glow up was real. The glow up was massive, and I'm excited for what this space means in terms of this channel. With a dedicated hobby space, I can set up a camera over here. I can do some painting stuff. I can do better hobbying videos. It won't be just like a janky overhead cam. It'll be a slightly less janky overhead cam. Maybe it's over the shoulder. I haven't decided yet. You know, there's a lot of decisions to be made. But hopefully that sort of thing is going to happen sooner rather than later. I just need to kind of further assess how I'm going to set up that portion of the space, because that is, you know, other equipment that is going to be a part of that table. But that should be coming soon. Thank you for taking a tour with me today, guys, and I will be back next time with probably another color theory video. It's been a little bit since I made one, but I have a lot of ideas for them. So I will see you next time with some of that. Peace.